However, if you cut through all of that stuff, which I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to separate how irritating he is, a lot of what he had to say was actually common sense. And it's cut me to the quick, it's cut me to the bone, because I can't believe I was sat there agreeing with a lot of what he had to say. There were lots of parts of it. There were things like Prince Harry should have been tossed aside from the royals and stripped of his titles. Yeah, he's right. That Putin probably wouldn't have invaded Ukraine if Trump was in power. I think he's probably right. That the absolutely diabolical way in which the United States withdrew from Afghanistan meant that Putin looked at it as an opportunity to strike in Ukraine. I think he's probably right. That people who are born in one sex should not perhaps be competing in the opposite sex's sports. I think he's probably right. And that the dependency on Russian oil and gas, which he pointed out to Germany all those years ago when people laughed at him, he was probably right. So I can't believe I found myself agreeing with him. I don't agree with him about the election being stolen. I think he's lost the plot there a bit. But a lot of what he had to say, he was actually speaking quite a lot of sense. Well, let's now cross live on the cost of living crisis and the fact, of course, that the Treasury is taking record taxes. Dr. Roger Gewolb is the CEO of Fair Money and a personal finance expert, and joins me this morning live on TalkTV. Morning to you, Dr. Roger.
Good morning.
I mean, it's quite shocking, isn't it, when hindsight, which is a wonderful thing, proves that Donald Trump was perhaps right in saying that our dependency on other countries and their oil and gas have left us in a position which made us susceptible to this cost of living crisis. I mean, we don't need to go into the geopolitical situation, but I guess what we can learn from this is that a lot of the elements that have led to this cost of living crisis, well, they were foreseeable.
Well, that's right. I mean, I think on a general point, I would have to say that the appearance of TalkTV on Monday appears with Trump, Tom Newton Dunn with Boris, appears with Sharon Osbourne and Tyson Fury. I mean, it's all so original, it's so incredible, and it really is pushing back the boundaries of some of the nonsense that has invaded the world. You're absolutely right. The cost of living is the chief thing. I mean, we're surrounded by bad news, but even with Russia using the N-word more and more every day, I think what seems to be frightening people the most, even though COVID is still around, it's going down a bit, the severity at least is going down, is the cost of living crisis, which doesn't seem to be abating and for which we don't really seem to have a plan to do anything.
And the N-word, of course, you're referring to is Putin and his nuclear threats, which are, well, they're seemingly working. I mean, he doesn't need to actually do anything, but by mentioning that N-word, all of the politicians in the West are essentially trying to do everything they can to stop this escalating, which probably means that it is going on for longer, which probably means that our energy and cost of living insecurity is continuing.
Well, yes. Fortunately, as I'll mention later, perhaps, we in the UK only take 8% of our oil from Russia, as opposed to the European Union, which takes country by country, much larger amounts. Now, talking about the cost of living without just the oil factor, the new national insurance rates come into effect from today, hitting all of our paychecks. And it's looking pretty clear that there will be another increase in energy price cap this autumn, raising the typical annual household fuel bill to a projected gagging £3,000. A lot of organizations have been offering advice, and I'd like to distill some of that and my own thoughts into a handful of suggestions of what people can do to try to protect themselves from this cost of living tsunami. The World Bank just announced late yesterday that we are facing the biggest price shock in 50 years for all commodities and goods due to the Ukraine war. So as for money to start with, I suggest the website Turn to Us, that's Turn and then the number 2 Us, gives free advice on benefits and grants that people may be able to claim. Don't borrow any money if you don't absolutely need to. Now is not the time for anyone to want to get into a spiral of increasing debt. Have a look at the website Money Helper and see whether you really need to borrow. Petrol, shop around. It's not hard. In a recent survey I conducted on social media, more than 80% of people could not find a petrol station that had reduced prices by the 5% that Rishi Sunak gave us. And only on Monday, I drove past 2 petrol stations on opposite sides of an A road. At one of them, a large supermarket chain, it was £1.61. And on the other side of the road, a major oil company, it was £1.72. It was worth driving around the roundabout, right? Debts. If you have debt problems and pressures, don't pay anyone for any debt advice until you have rung the national debt line and found out from them what they think is best for you. Food. Compare prices between different supermarkets with a very interesting website called Trolley. And if you want to share your food or have food shared from others with you, go to Olio, O-L-I-O. Regarding energy, talk to your energy providers about help. They really do want to help, and they do understand our situation. You just have to hang on the phone long enough for them to answer because they're very, very busy. And finally, peace and calm. If you think it might be your thing, a number of organizations are suggesting the websites Headspace and Calm to relieve the horrors that go around in our heads all day and all night through meditation and relaxation exercises.
It's really, really, really good advice, all of that, Dr. Roger. Really, really appreciate that. And I think that will be really, really helpful for people. But then, of course, a lot of that advice, for instance, I've been thinking recently, I'm at the stage, myself personally, and other people are going to have these sorts of dilemmas. So I'm at the stage at the moment where my car is of a certain age. And I'm at that crossroads. Do I keep the car and sort of just risk it going wrong because it's getting to that age? Or do I try and part exchange it and try and pay the same or there and thereabouts a month? It will mean getting into a new debt, but it means that I get a newer car, okay? So that's the kind of dilemma that people will probably be having at the moment. And more often than not, people like me, myself, I'll probably say, you know what, it's worth taking the risk. I'll keep the older car on the road because it means not taking on a new debt. And, of course, all I'm seeing everywhere, which is going to contribute to this, is recession fears, because a lot of us are going to be saying, you know what, all of those purchases we were thinking of making, that holiday we were thinking of going on, that car we were thinking of buying, all of those things are not going to happen now. And that is going to affect consumer confidence, and it is potentially going to put us into recession, right?
Well, absolutely. You're a wise man, Christo, because I would recommend in most cases, you should not get that new used car or new car right now, because apart from what you say about incurring additional credit, the shortage of microchips, which has been with us now for well over a year, and all the supply chain problems have resulted, as I've said on this program a number of times before, in used cars actually selling for more than the new models.
Oh, you don't need to tell me that, Dr. Roger. You're quite right. I've been looking for a used car, a newer used car, and you can't find one for love nor money because no one is part exchanging their cars, and the ones that are for sale are going well above the list price. You know, you've got the book value of a used car. Now, you might pay a little bit more for it with a dealer, but they're going for well above. And a lot of the finance deals that a lot of these car manufacturers normally offer, they've got rid of because they know they don't need to offer them anymore because people are desperate who can afford a new car to get one.
Yes, that's right. I mean, they are going for more. The figure's about 20%, Christo. There's a 20% premium on it depends who you ask. Everybody's got different statistics, of course, but it's 20% a premium over the new car price to get quick delivery of a used car.
Wow.
It's really the wrong time, even if you've got the cash pouring out of the windows of your house onto the lawn and your neighbors picking it up. You're going to be throwing your money away by buying a car and paying that kind of a premium right now if you can hold on.
And what are the other sorts of decisions that people are going to be holding off on, do you think, that could end up actually seeing our economy getting smaller month on month, putting us into what is known as a technical recession?
Yes, well, there's all kinds of decisions. It's an individual thing. Obviously, they center around the items that I just mentioned to do with food, energy, obviously luxuries, holidays, that sort of thing. It's a process, Christo, that the government is actually going through, because one of the things that they're thinking about is scrapping things like MOTs. Now, the prime minister asked his cabinet on Monday to come up with ideas to cut costs, solutions to the rising cost of living crisis. One solution that seems to have gotten much consideration is the proposal to change the need for cars over 3 years old to be tested by MOTs every 12 months. Basically, Chancellor Sunak doesn't want to spend any more money. He fears that if the government spends any more, it will further fuel the already runaway inflation that we have. He believes that needing to save money by cutting spending and not paying for new initiatives is the way to go, and scrapping MOTs is one possibility. It will save consumers the MOT costs and also the repair costs that would otherwise be required. Yes?
But those repair costs are necessary, and an MOT is about £30 a year. I mean, what kind of saving is that looking at? 50p a week? I mean, it's sort of ridiculous. I mean, my question with that is, why are they faffing around the edges? There was also the childcare story about reducing the number of, increasing the number of children that a childcare provider can look after, meaning that eventually the cost will go down. Why are they fannying around the edges? Why aren't they saying, right, we're raising the tax threshold, we're slashing the VAT on energy bills and the green levy? Why aren't they taking that kind of bold action?
We're not increasing the national insurance. Sure, there's faffing is exactly the right word. The MOT proposal there's a subtext to it, which of course nobody is going to say, which is that people won't have to have the major repairs made to their cars either. That's where the real savings comes in, not the £30 fee. But of course, there are people who argue that will put far more unsafe vehicles will remain on the road. But how many of those are there compared to the number of families now suffering? Some ministers insisted that cutting taxes is the only way to help families, Krista, while Jacob Rees-Mogg argued that ending the net carbon zero targets for now is a very easy win. At the meeting, that won't be a very popular idea with some. At the meeting, I love this, a spokesman for the PM stated, breathless with excitement, I imagine, that this was, quote, live policy work taking place with more to say in the future. Now, Sir Keir Starmer, always ready to take a shot at an easy opening, commented that what is needed is an emergency budget, not a cabinet meeting, to address the cost of living. He is absolutely right. But yes, Sir Keir, and next?
I think he is absolutely right, and bold action needs to be taken. Really good to talk to you, and really good advice you were giving to people there. I don't know whether we're going to get much further with much help for us, though, but that's Dr. Roger Gewolb, who is the CEO of Fair Money and Personal Finance Expert. Coming up here.